Good morning and welcome to Ed's World, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon. I am Jay Edgar, and I am joined once again by returning guest and fan favorite, Emily, the Adventist Millennial. Emily, welcome back to Ed's World.
Thank you.
You are fulfilling my dream of having everybody who has the last name of Millennial on my podcast.
You better hurry up. A lot of people are dropping it.
Yeah, I know. Roaming Millennial has gone back to our real name, and so has Conservative Millennials. So
Yup.
you're not
It's
related
the
to any of
thing to
them, are
do.
you?
Apparently not anymore now that they changed their last names.
Marriage is a funny thing. Before we get too far into the topics here, I wanted to share an observation that I've had over the past couple days. I follow Instagram. I follow various people from both sides of the aisle. I talk to various people, and I listen to various shows from both sides of the aisle. And I've noticed something. I noticed this a little bit too when I was listening to your show, The Adventist Millennial. Make sure you guys check that out. That when you're on the political left or political center or do something in public that isn't political at all in your case, it's okay for you to talk to and show your family around there. There are a lot of people out there where I see, oh, their babies are on social media, their husbands, etc. A lot of the people out there had their dads on just this past Sunday for Father's Day. But I look at this here, I look at some of the things that have happened, some of the doxing, some of the swatting out there, and I wouldn't dare do the same thing. I wouldn't dare put my family out there. I thought about having my mom on for Mother's Day this past month, but I couldn't bring myself to do that because my family didn't sign on for any of this, and I get hate mail. I get some of the threats and some of the nasty tweets back to me. They didn't sign on for any of this, but apparently, if you think the correct way, it's okay. And again, I noticed that you had your parents on just recently on your show.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably true that it's not the most prudent thing to do, but, I think even if they didn't sign on for necessarily what you're describing, I think my parents are equally willing as I am to say what we think in any sphere. So they'll deal with any flack that comes their way, I suppose.
And like I said, for you, it's a slightly different topic than what it is for me. I'm going out on the offensive against the status quo per se, and
Yeah.
you're discussing your religion and the way you view it, which I've been listening to more of your show, and it's very enjoyable as well.
Yeah, I think probably the political sphere is a little bit more volatile. In my sort of niche place or topic of interest, it's more likely to get backlash from the inside.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you never know. What's on the internet is on the internet. So
And there
people
are
should
some
be
strange people out there.
exactly. Just
I'm losing you. Buffering. Please hold. Are you there?
hello.
I've got you there. All right.
All right. Hopefully my
We're still buffering, so bear with us for just a moment while we try and get caught up with this here. Oh, a blink. We have motion. Are you there? Can you hear?
hello.
I've got
I
you
can hear
back.
you. You're coming through fine. All right.
All right.
Cross our fingers.
Well, before we get too much further into this here, we got some announcements to talk about here. This past Friday, I recorded with our very co-host here, Emily, to do her show, but it's not going to come out for a little while. Emily, why don't you tell us a little bit about that and when that's going to come out?
Yeah, we had a good time talking about sort of your perspective on religion and how that, uh, I guess, intersection collides, crosses over. I don't know with some of the stuff that I talk about. And that will be, I don't know the exact date. Let me look at my little calendar here.
Sure.
That will probably be going out August, middle, first, second or third week of August, probably is when you'll see that going out.
And I will have announcements on my Twitter. We'll make sure and we go check that out.
Yeah.
We got a lot to talk about this week, and now that we've got everybody's internet caught back up here, we're going to start right out in Emily's wheelhouse and talk about the Masterpiece Cake Shop and some of the new events that have happened there. I think there's going to be some interesting perspective there. As we always do on this show, we'll be covering 2020, and this was an Elizabeth Warren heavy week. So we're going to talk a lot about her, and we'll always, of course, ask the three questions that I always ask at the end of 2020 Watch. Former newspaper, the New York Times, put out an article talking about the radicalization of a certain college dropout. We'll talk a little bit about that and how that story ended. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez lobbied this week for a congressional pay raise of a mere $45,000 or $4,500 rather a year. So we'll talk a little bit about that and whether or not they deserve to have their pay raise. A blip in the radar saw Donald Trump getting calls for impeachment again, this time for insisting that he might accept foreign influence. So we'll talk a bit about that. And there was a ship that was shot outside of Iran. Some people think it was Iran, some people think it was a conspiracy. We will talk just a little bit about that to close out the show. It's going to be all of this and more on Ed's World. Thanks for taking the time to watch this show on YouTube and BitChute. If you're on either one of these platforms, please hit that subscribe button and hit that like button on your way down. If you're listening back to this on an audio platform, you can always take us on the go. We are on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And if you are on iTunes, please leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That helps us move up the charts. As always, you can check out Ed's World every week on freedomscoop.com, and you always have the chance as well to check out great shows like The Generational Gap and Call Me Ignorant from the great Stephen Ignoramus. Make sure you go over and check us out there. After all of this introduction here, it's time to talk about the most important part of Ed's World. So, returning guest Emily, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm just a generic person who puts their opinions out on the internet and hopes somebody cares. Yeah, I'm interested in pop culture and a little bit politics. And I like to talk about religion and I like to argue. So there you go.
That's great. I know we've had you on the show before and you've talked this through a bit here, but for all the new listeners out there, tell us just a little bit about how you got into the decision to making a podcast about Adventism.
Well, actually, probably, let me tell you, my prophetic abilities here. No, like a year ago, around almost a year ago is when I started it, and at the time, it was like peak Jordan Peterson at that time, and I was listening to him as everyone was, and realizing, according to my worldview and my philosophy on life, I could see that he was coming very quickly to the end of his wisdom, in the sense that he really struggles with saying anything definitively about his belief in religion. And as a religious person, I figured that that was probably going to, reach a wall for a lot of people. And so I wanted to have somewhere else, some extra part of the path for people to go once that happened. And, I won't say I told you so, but in the last year, if you look at Jordan Peterson standing in the public eye, I was kind of right. So if you're becoming disillusioned with Jordan Peterson, head over and listen to the first handful of episodes of my podcast.
I'll actually have to go back and check out some of the first ones because I came in Probably right after you had Matt and Blonde on, so I'm unfamiliar with
Yeah,
this
yeah.
setting.
Go back and listen to the beginning. I don't mention him specifically a lot, but yeah, that was kind of the underlying reasoning why I really ended up jumping into it.
All right. Well, if you're satisfied with how that turned out, let's start talking about what's right in your wheelhouse for this show. This past week, we got another story out of the Masterpiece Cake Shop in Colorado. For those of you who don't remember, this is the same cake shop that was sued for the fact that they would not cater to a same sex wedding with custom cakes. However, the proprietor did offer to have the couple come in and buy whatever it was that they wanted off the shelf for the wedding. He just wouldn't do any custom work for that. And now he's getting sued again because he refuses to make a birthday cake for the great Satan. What do you think about this? What's the official Adventist, or the official Adventist view on this?
I mean, personal choice. Everyone's as what's his name in Chaucer in what's that movie with A Knight's Tale.
Okay.
Well, it was allegorical. That's for every man to decide for himself. That's what I would say. I mean, like, at some point it becomes ridiculous. I actually didn't see this as the reason he was being sued again. Not being willing to make Satan's birthday cake. I looked at several news stories and I only saw that it was a transgender person suing him again for the same reason of not being willing to bake a transgender cake.
Well, that was
So
the
I'm not
second
sure.
suit.
Hmm?
That was the second suit. That was a few months ago.
Yeah, I remember it from a few months ago too when I looked it up, in kind of informing myself for this program. I couldn't find anything on Satan's birthday cake. What I read was that it was the same person who was suing him again for the same thing. So I'm not really sure exactly. I think ultimately it's the same result of people just trying to, catch him out or whatever. But yeah, I even searched like Satan's birthday, whatever, and I didn't find any stories about it.
Well, interestingly enough, he is being sued again for refusal to do a custom cake for a custom event. At what point do we call this targeted at this point?
Right, exactly. I mean, and I think that's part of the reason why this person apparently they're suing for the second time. Um, you know, why they are having to go back at it because they weren't successful, and I don't know. Good luck. They can keep trying.
Well, this is a person too that, I mean, even before any of this controversy came out, this is, I know I've been around bakeries. I've worked in a deli and a grocery store locally in the bakery there. Plus, I know some bakers. I've been around some small bakers. It's always festive to go through and celebrate Halloween or do holidays like that. Put the Easter bunny out everywhere for Easter, but this is a person who wouldn't even do that. Like, this is a person who would not make a Halloween cake before any of this started happening. So,
Well, I mean, and the other thing too is like if it's the same person that keeps coming back and trying to sue him over and over, like at some point it should be reasonable that he just wouldn't make them a cake specifically. I mean, business owners have the right to be like, "You're banned. I don't want to see you anymore." But if we're going to make all these protected classes so that like, "Oh, you can't ban me because of such and such protected class," then you know, that's kind of dumb in my opinion. Because like you go and make a ruckus in a store and they could ban you from coming in. Like I think suing someone multiple times justifies his unwillingness to participate. That's just me, but
one of the interesting things that I saw about this story, even before like this actually came out, when they changed the Civil Rights Act just a few weeks ago, or proposed to change the Civil Rights Act, one of the things that they talked about with homosexuality, transgenderism, and the fact that you wouldn't be allowed to discriminate for this again is in the language specifically. They said bakery. So at some point, I think this is targeted, and this is something bigger than just a couple of people that are trying to sue at this point.
Wait, say they said what? They said bakery in the context of what?
A few weeks ago, they passed a bill to try and change the language of the Civil Rights Act. I cannot think of what the name of it was, but they tried to. It was essentially an amendment to the Civil Rights Act of 1969 to include sexual orientation and gender status in the language of the Civil Rights Act. And one of the texts, or part of the text that they put out in that, I read through the entire act, was the fact that they specifically said no bakery shall discriminate against anybody on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity.
Yeah. Sounds like sour grapes to me.
Well,
Because that one got all the way up to the Supreme Court, which, interestingly enough, I mean, I think we were all intrigued by the fact that the ruling was so narrow, and they never really tackled the core of what people thought was the issue. They kind of ruled it on a technicality. And so I imagine at some point it will come back. Well, I don't know. Maybe they'll keep kicking it down the road, but you would think at some point they would have to be faced with the actual question at hand. I mean, the Adventist Church, the church that I'm a part of, considered filing an amicus brief in that case. But then, well, I thought it was because they decided it wasn't really a religious liberty case. Then I found out that they didn't know whether they agreed with anti-discrimination. So that is a whole different can of worms. But ultimately, they didn't end up filing an amicus brief. And I don't think it would have helped in the end because of how narrowly they ruled. But we'll see if something else gets back to SCOTUS again, because they keep kicking. I saw a couple of other articles about other cake cases being kicked back down to the state courts. So we'll see.
well, yeah, and I mean, they do have to have 4 justices come on and vote to hear anything that comes before the Supreme Court. So anything after that would be either dismissed or kicked down to a lower level, like you said. It's an interesting idea to see. Where do you fall? Would you bake the cake or not? If you were a baker?
Personally, probably it depends on how much I personally disliked them. No, on principle, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I maintain that I am not a huge fan of anti-discrimination laws in general. And in general, I'm in favor of business owners being able to discriminate in whatever way they want. So, but as far as if someone personally asked me to do it, I probably wouldn't have a problem with it.
Well, that's where you. I mean, I've heard Christensen talk about this a little bit, and I kind of tend to agree with the position that he put forward. I was neutral on the whole thing before I started looking into some of this, but the free market is going to fix this if, somebody has, like the hardware store down in Tennessee, if somebody has a sign outside that says no gays allowed, the free market is going to fix that because everyone's going to turn around and say, hey, this guy's a bigot. Let's not go shop at his hardware store.
No, because systematic oppression. We have to intervene in the free market.
Well, in the case that the good Matt put forward when he was talking about that, yes, they can come in and intervene, and then you're just fooling yourself into thinking that the person's not bigoted.
No, I think that's right. And for sure, I think that is kind of the purpose. Not only in a free market, not only will it correct those types of things, it will also show the true attitude of society as a collective. People are going around these days saying like, oh, the culture is so bad and everyone's still racist and we have this systematic, whatever, such and such or another thing. You can see exactly where people are at if you let the free market work. And if people are fine with racist cake owners or homophobic cake owners, that will be clear in what the market does. So it's a way to keep people honest too, I think.
Absolutely. And we do need a lot more honesty in this world, especially when we're looking at the people that are trying to snipe the president's office away from our president. And I think that's a good turn for us to turn around and look at 2020 and what's going to be happening there. So this past week we started to see Elizabeth Warren start to spike in the polls. There are many polls out there at this point right now that are showing Warren above Sanders at this point. She hasn't shot up ahead of Biden yet, but she is definitely above Sanders rather at this point. So
'Cause like, why? Did she do something that was like impressive? Did she have a rain dance or something?
I think she just kept her mouth shut for a while.
She let everyone crash and burn around her.
Yeah.
That's true. I haven't really seen, other than her like "Hey fellow kids" moment with the drinking beer on Instagram. I haven't really seen much of her.
Well, there was the instance in the Pride Parade too, which Lokes and I talked about that when I had him on my show. Which, again, to reiterate what he said, that was not her moment to be out there in the parade. She should have been the person on the sideline, slapping the high fives at the person or people she was allied with. But
Or Kirsten Gillibrand being like, "Gay rights."
But for the most part, yeah, I think it's just to the point that Elizabeth is starting to stop talking, which is what Shapiro was suggesting for Biden, for Trump, for a lot of other people. If you
Yeah,
just stop
I
talking.
mean, on one hand, yes, but then on the other hand, if she cuts through all of this whole field of candidates, all Trump has to say is, what's his nickname for her?
Pocahontas.
Yeah, Pocahontas or whatever. That's all he has to say, and she's like, "Dunzo." So I don't know. Silence won't help her at that point. He's just so good at baiting people. Like he baited her into taking the DNA test. So what makes her think it's gonna be any different if she makes it all the way
Oh,
to the
that was great
nomination?
too.
In fact, I mean, I can't help but hope a little bit just for the comedy value of the whole situation.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because I mean, long before Biden got in, I think it was before Sanders got in even, when we were starting to see some of the first rounds of people announce. I listen to Pod Save America every once in a while, and it seemed like even way back then that the boys over at PSA, who used to be Obama staffers, so theoretically they know a little bit about what's going on the inside, were all in favor of putting Warren into the White House. They seem to have their endorsement behind her. And it seems when I've been looking at this, it looks like Vox seems to have their endorsement behind Warren too at this point.
Yeah, I saw a couple of Vox articles that were like pro Warren.
Without the superdelegate system, I am kind of interested to see if the DNC has already coordinated who they are going to run, how they are going to get that person to the top, especially with all of the polls right now favoring a more centrist Biden than Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders
Well,
even,
they'll have to turn on him on their creepy kids stuff.
which is definitely a possibility. I know they've got the ammunition for there. I am waiting for the debates right now, especially the first round and the second round
Yeah,
after
it'll
we
be
start,
interesting.
especially the debates after Super Tuesday, because I want to see what dirt they have on each other. I want to see everyone's cards on the table. We are going to have a damned interesting election cycle because we've got so many people vying for the top, and we have electability versus progressivism, which is
Yeah.
crazy how many people want that. But
Well, I think it's hilarious how badly Beto O'Rourke just like flopped on his face.
is he still alive, or did he go back to touring with Nirvana?
Well, I was looking at one New York Times article, and you have a whole bunch of names in here in the first debate with Warren, and they're just like, oh, it's in the bag for Warren. Cory Booker doesn't get a mention, Tulsi Gabbard doesn't get a mention, O'Rourke doesn't get a mention, Amy Klobuchar certainly doesn't get a mention. But yeah, poor Cory Booker, he's not gonna get to showboat his way to the top.
They're not letting him up there because he is Spartacus. Well, it's interesting
He
that
would be he would be like number 2 on my entertainment value candidate. And Bernie is always up there too for entertainment value.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the debate schedule because, yes, that was the other part of presidential news that we have for this week is the fact that we actually have a debate schedule announced at this point, so we can start to plan for what we're going to be doing. And as we talked about on the show, it is going to be a 2 night event. They're splitting it down into 10 candidates a night, and the bottom 5 are not getting any airtime into the debates. Eric Swalwell made his way into the debates. I remember just recently him out there begging for donors because he needed to have 65,000 donors to get up there.
Was he the one that was like, was it Swallow that was like, I'm being bold without the bull or something like that? That didn't even make sense.
Yeah, that was him. I just remember him as the nuclear representative, the guy that says, "Give me, or we're turning in your guns, or we're going to nuke you." You want to go to war with America? It'll be a short war. The government has nukes. Too many of them, but they work nonetheless.
Yeah.
Actual Twitter quote from Eric Swalwell.
What a winner.
There are a lot of people that were kind of upset, and there were a lot of people that were kind of excited for the fact, going back to everybody's favorite Native American candidate, that Elizabeth Warren is going to be on the second night. A lot of people said that she's going to be on the kids' table, but I do have to wonder if that is strategic at some point because so many of the higher-ups want her to make it to the end. I'm curious as to see whether or not they're putting her at the kids' table because they want to see her wipe the floor with everybody else.
Which debates are we talking about? I thought she was in the first one.
From what I read, I would have to double check this again, but I thought that she was going to be on the second night.
Oh. In this, the end of this month?
Yeah, the one that's upcoming.
Next week?
Yeah. Oh, wow, that is coming up quick, too, isn't it?
New York Times says she's in June 26, which is night 1.
Huh. Oh, they must have promoted her then, because I remember they're saying she was going out of the
Yeah,
kids'
but I
table.
see a bunch of, all the big hitters are in the second night, because you got Biden, you got Sanders, you got Pete Buttigieg, and Kamala Harris are all in the second night.
Kamala Harris, the heavy hitter. Well, then that may be the kids' table then, too, because, yeah, I mean, once again, is this strategy, and are they highlighting her for the first night because of that? That is an interesting idea, I think.
Yeah, get her on her own where she can't be stomped by anyone.
I hope we get to see her on the stage with Trump. Well, speaking of which, and speaking of who's going to make it to the end here, since you've been on the show last, I've added 3 questions to my 2020 watch. I always ask the same 3 questions to every guest that's on there, and I want your honest opinion on everything. So, first question, obviously, and I love to see how this changes from week to week. Statistically, educated guess based on everything that's laid out in front of you here, who do you think makes it to the end and is nominated for the Democrat Party, based on statistics from this past week?
It's hard to say. I mean, I guess if we really think Warren is who the DNC picked, then I guess there's no stopping her.
Polls be damned.
Yeah.
So, now we're going to do a what-if scenario here. So if we had to have a Democrat president the next time, if we had no choice in that, say that Donald stroked out on the campaign trail or something and they couldn't bring up a decent candidate in time, if we had to have a Democrat next time, out of the current field we have out of there, who does Emily want to see as the president for 2020?
Probably... Definitely Cory Booker. You just can't get more melodramatic.
It'd be a great argument to limit the powers of the presidency.
I mean, if we're gonna have this much melodrama with Trump, we gotta let the pendulum swing all the way to the other end.
And of course, we have another New Jerseyan out there too, because New Jersey is right next to New York, so let's all just keep it right in the same area.
There you go.
And my final question when I always ask this is no statistics, no what you would rather have, just for pure entertainment value. Which candidate do you want to see on the stage against Donald Trump in the debate as the nominee?
I think it's a tie between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren because Bernie Sanders is just like two old guys going at each other. And then Elizabeth Warren, we already have this whole Pocahontas trope, so it's just going to be, he's just going to tomahawk her to death, I guess.
Oh, that had to be gone there. I always like the Bernie Sanders idea because, yes, you say two old people going at it for each other, but I'm also entertained by the thought that it's going to be two old men who are going to go at each other in New York accents.
Yeah, I mean, and Bernie is just so. I mean, like, he's the worst, but also you can't hate him because he just, as Ben Shapiro says, where's my pudding?
Well, I do love pudding. I'm actually going to make some pudding after we're done with the stream, so. Oh, speaking of New York, let's talk about this radicalization article and what happened there. So, last Sunday, right before my last show went on, so we didn't really get a chance to talk about it, the New York Times Sunday edition put out an article. It was a cover story as well, showing the fact that they followed the journey of Caleb Kane, who was watching videos as Trump was elected and watching people cry about it, and he was suddenly radicalized by people like Dave Rubin and Philip DeFranco. The New York Times painted YouTube as a dangerous place, a conservative place that is turning people against the right ideas for the country and turning people into collectivist right-wingers. What did you think about this article when you started hearing about it?
I mean, yeah, Philly D is really out there radicalizing people. And Dave Rubin. I mean, like, what else do you expect? This is. I confess I did not read the whole thing. It was a gigantically long article that was just total dreck. But you can't expect anything else. Just lump everyone together and then take shots at them and then virtue signal, and that's the formula for whatever it is the left thinks they're doing.
Well, the thing with it too, I mean, I'm alternative media on the right. Are we out there radicalizing people? Are we trying to force people into an ideology and tempt them over with candy and say, "Hey, you can hate whoever you want over here"? I mean, this is an interesting topic for those of us who are in this media source at this point.
Well, you're not radicalizing anyone anymore because they fixed the algorithm. They're just gonna bury you.
Oh, they already have. I've been seeing my views take a sharp decline over the
Yeah, you
last
can't
couple of weeks.
radicalize anyone from 6 feet under. That's the whole idea.
What do you make of this coupled against the Vox apocalypse? Because these happen pretty quick succession with each other, from what I've seen here.
Yeah, I have been pretty out of the loop, so I didn't see it all as it was happening. I kind of heard about it after the fact, but yeah, that's what everybody has been saying is like something is looking a little bit fishy here with how all coordinated it seemed.
Well, the Vox apocalypse seemed like it was coordinated, of course, with Gay Pride Month, given the fact that Carlos Maza is listed himself as Gay Wonk on Twitter. So that seemed to be coordinated there. But just, again, the fact that this happened right afterwards, when this article came out, is this a coordinated attempt to turn YouTube back over to the mainstreams? Do you think?
I mean, I'm always on board for a good conspiracy theory, so yes to all.
Yes to all. I don't know. This whole thing, it bothers me. And the people that they put up there, like you said, DeFranco, I don't know anything about DeFranco, but they tell me that he is slightly closer to the center than I am, which has got to be like right on the line at this point.
And didn't like Tim Pool get disappeared too or something?
He had one of his articles talking about this whole thing taken down. No, that wasn't. He wasn't talking about this. He was talking about the Pinterest idea. He had one of his
Yeah.
videos taken down over that.
Yeah, and he's not alt-right. He's like center left.
Well, he is center left. That is correct, but he's independent. A part of this I have to wonder about the fact is this because the New York Times is obviously working with Fox, they're working with CNN, they're working with MSNBC, NBC networks, the Voxes, and everybody else there. Is this an attempt to turn, like I said, is this an attempt to turn YouTube over to the mainstream? Is this trying to put the rest of us out because we
Yeah,
are we are a threat to them?
it could be that, and also because of the fact that they're lumping your Tim Pools in with your Milos and your Alex Joneses and your, whoever else, Philly D or whatever, because there's no distinction of these between these people who have wildly different beliefs and worldviews. It must be something like, if you're not in lockstep, like if you don't participate in the 2 minutes hate, then automatically you're on the outside or whatever. It's a way to control people, I suppose.
Well, control is an interesting topic there, and I want to go back to something that you said when we first started talking about this. When we look at the end of the article, which I didn't read at all, I just read snippets of it that other people out there because the New York Times is very, very sadistic with their subscription plan, and I have no intention to give any.
Subscribe for $1 for 10 years.
Yeah, they don't even deserve $1 from me, so. I ran out of free articles looking into the Vox apocalypse. So I haven't read a word of this article except for like what Shapiro put up or what PSA put up or anything like that. Um, the end of this article shows that the guy was suddenly saved, and he wasn't radicalized. He was able to be saved by a different algorithm, and now he's sainted and he's pure again.
Yeah. Well, that's the stupid thing, is like, if the assumption is that you're completely at the mercy of whatever is in front of you, like you have no ability to withstand any kind of reason or anything like that. You're just, whoop, oh, oops, I saw Dora the Explorer and now I'm 2 years old. Like, you'd have to give some people credit, and that's just non-existent in the whole concept of this piece.
Dora the Explorer. When we were working out that I was going to be on your show, we were talking about that. I remember we were talking about that on Instagram.
We were talking about Dora the Explorer.
Yeah, because I was in a Discord group, and they were talking about the fact that they're just about to release a live-action Dora movie.
Oh, I don't remember us talking about that, but I did see the trailer for that movie.
I have not seen the trailer.
It looked very like something I would be fine with missing.
I missed Dora the Explorer when it was new. I had nieces and nephews at the time that were just getting into the age that, yes, they would have been into Dora the Explorer, but I was much too old for it when it was first new. I missed Barney by like a year.
I mean, I just missed it by not watching TV, so.
Aren't you lucky for that? Trust me, everything that they had on TV at the time was just Pavlov for kids that didn't have enough to do.
Hey, Magic School Bus is a classic.
Yeah, but that again, I missed the Magic School Bus TV show by a few years too. When I was that age, Magic School Bus was nothing but books.
That's on you for not being born in the right year.
My sister was born in the right year.
Yeah, so what's your problem?
Well, I've read every single one of the books I have read. I made it a point when I was 7 to go through the library and read every single Magic School Bus book there was, and I checked the catalog, and I had to have the library order 6 of them so I could finish the collection, because they were missing 6.
Well, there you go.
You have anything else to say on Mr. Caleb Kane and the fact that he dropped out of college and became an alt-right Nazi only to become
I
a
mean,
left-winger
like,
again?
this is the exact same thing that you hear in the really conservative side of religion is like, ooh, what you watch is so scary that it will like change you without you even realizing. It's the exact same argument. It's just the flip side of religion. It's what's the word I'm looking for? Uh
Reverse?
Fanaticism. It's fanaticism for secular people. It's like, oh, you it's voodoo that you're gonna just suddenly become alt-right and a scary Nazi because you happen to see one YouTube video from Philly D. And it's the same thing you hear in Christianity of like, ooh, watch one movie of the Dark Knight and suddenly you're in an alley shooting heroin in your veins and you're going to hell because you have no autonomy or ability to think or make decisions for yourself based on what you watch. It's basically like possession of thing. It's the same attitude, and I think it's not very wise.
Well, it's an interesting concept that you bring up because, I listen to this now and I think about, like the Satanic Panic from way back when,
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
and like Iron Maiden and Ozzy Osbourne and the trouble that
Yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne got in when he was young, or back in the 80s when he made a song called Suicide Solutions, and it was talking about the fact that he drank consistently until it was almost shutting down his internal organs. And some kid went out and killed himself, and his mom blamed Ozzy for that because of the title of the song. Didn't hear a word of the song, but I've listened to the song. It's all about liquor and how bad it is for you.
Yeah, exactly. So, you have on one side Aleister Crowley, who's actually a Satanist and wanting to like corrupt people, and then all of this satanic panic that you were just talking about, and then you have tradcons who are like, guys, get married and have kids and like live a happy life. Oh no, you're gonna get infected by the alt-right. It's like they're both kind of ridiculous.
Well, that brings up a point that I completely missed here, and it's a point that I should have thought about because of the fact that you were on the show. One of the points that they brought up in this New York Times article that showed the regression of this guy into the alt-right was the fact that he was dating an evangelical Christian girl.
It's like it's the same thing of like it's just the exact mirror image. So I've grown up with this in religion. I don't need it in politics.
Or your YouTube experience, for that matter.
Yeah, exactly.
You go on YouTube to go and watch a bearded man and a blonde lady argue about politics.
Yeah, exactly. Just leave me alone. Just let me do what I'm going to do.
Well, that was an interesting turn out of nowhere, but I'm glad I got that information out there. But given the fact that now we have to pass laws about YouTube to try and appease our corporate overlords in the mainstream media, let's talk a little bit about the people that are going to be making the laws that will bend us to the whims of our corporate mainstream media overlords. And I'm talking, of course, about Congress. There was a bill put forward this past month, it was earlier on in the month, suggesting that Congress should take a small, compared to their salary, cost of living raise. The amount was in $4,500. Now, given the fact that most people couldn't go home and explain to their constituents the fact that they were going to do this, the bill got tabled. It didn't go through. But this past week, everybody's favorite New York socialist, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, decided to bring the issue back to the table and start lobbying for, yes, us to have a congressional pay raise. It's just small and it's for cost of living. Does Congress deserve a pay raise?
Well, of course the answer is no. And good old AOC. Did I hear that right? It was for $4,500 was the original bill? It wasn't a percentage? Because isn't a COLA usually a percentage? Or am I just misinformed?
It's usually a percentage, but no, they did have they had a specific number on there. I'm guessing they calculated it from a percentage, but they haven't had a pay raise since 2009. Congressional pay
Yeah.
is $174,000. They could go a few more years.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, look, I think everybody would appreciate COLA, a cost of living adjustment. However, th they're called public servants for a reason, and it's not like they're making pennies. Like, even in a high cost of living area like DC, they're making what, 170 something thousand dollars a year.
Hmm.
You can you can make ends meet. Um, you're not supposed to be in Congress to be making money. You're supposed to be in there to serve the people. So, like, I don't know. We have to. Everyone's arguing about the budget, so, like, why are we wanting to expand their paycheck?
Well, there is no budget. When's the last time we had a budget? I'll give you a hint. Obama was in office.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think there's any surprise because everyone is always gonna, no matter who you are or what you do, you're always gonna lobby to get more money. So that's expected. And I don't think necessarily we need to be outraged about it either because everyone's gonna do that. But, like, also, them they make plenty of money.
Well, Cortez brought up the idea that, obviously, of course, that she should be getting a raise. She deserves a raise for cost of living increase in her first 6 months in Congress. And of course, Cortez has not done anything in the first 6 months of Congress except for go on Instagram and be amazed by the fact that she has a garbage disposal and has no idea what it is.
Yeah, she has a lot of IKEA furniture that she needs to buy, and that stuff is pricey. Let me tell you.
I've never been to an IKEA.
Well, it's pricey. Let me tell you.
I think there's one in Milwaukee, but I've never been there.
And you never will if you continue making peanuts compared to congressional uh, or Congress people.
Well, it's like the meme is going out too about Cortez, and they're talking. Well, only a millennial would be in a job for 6 months, not accomplish anything, and demand a raise.
Are you
6 months.
kidding? She's accomplished all kinds of things.
I'm sure you have a list waiting there, whether it's sarcastic or serious. I'm sure
Well,
you've got.
she's accomplished the only thing that's really relevant since Obama came into office is celebrity status. She's done that very well. So for that, if she wants to be a celebrity and she wants celebrity status, should she not be compensated as a celebrity? It's not unreasonable.
Now, what do you think about the argument that Cortez brought up, saying that if they don't get a raise, then they are going to have to turn to outside sources, lobbying and dark money, to get their
Yeah,
cost of living?
let me just give you an ultimatum. As a public servant, I'll give you an ultimatum that if you don't pay me more, I will, start doing dirty deals.
I'll start getting bribed by George Soros,
Yeah, exactly.
as if
As
that's.
if as if either if she was going to do it, she's going to do it. Nothing's going to change that. A raise isn't going to change that.
Well, one of the arguments that comes forward with that as well is the fact that, yes, they're talking about they're going to turn to lobbyists to get more money because they're not getting their cost of living increase. And that goes back to the idea of people like Nancy Pelosi turning around and becoming millionaires in Congress after only making a very bottom end of the six-figure salary for 20 years. That money is coming from somewhere no matter what, and it's not $4,500 a year.
She has an Etsy. She sells like headdresses on Etsy. Got a problem with it? That's free market.
I'm going to look for Nancy Pelosi's headdresses on Etsy.
Either that or oh no, that would be Elizabeth Warren. Nancy Pelosi probably makes like denture bedazzled dentures for Etsy or something. That's why she's always like
Something you can shuffle around in your mouth like
yeah,
that.
her bedazzled dentures.
I do have to talk about that just a little bit because there are people that are going to be listening to this on the audio platform and don't get to see that wonderful demonstration right there.
Well, all you have to do is watch any clip of Nancy Pelosi and you'll see exactly what it looks like. My all-time favorite was I don't even remember. What was it? She and Chuck Schumer were on camera talking about some. What was it for? Oh, they were following up. They were like responding to Trump's speech or something, and they're both just standing there looking like, that farmer painting. Um, and she's there like smacking her dentures the entire time, and Chuck Schumer is looking like the angry eagle from what's that? What is it? I forget. Anyway, that
I
was
don't
like
know anything about an angry eagle.
I can't remember his name. It's a cartoon. I don't remember. Anyway, that was one of my favorite tableaus of the year.
Well, there was one other meme-worthy thing that came out of Cortez's mouth that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about when she was talking about this. This is the first thing that I saw when I first saw this argument come up, was the fact that Cortez tried to compare her job in Congress to the fact that unions can go out and collectively bargain and vote on giving themselves a pay raise, and so can co-ops. And those are two things that Cortez has as pet projects, is trying to get everybody in America either into a co-op or a union because reasons and dependency. But and I come from a union household. I've said that numerous times on this show. And I have no problem with people collectively bargaining. It's just the political aspects of the union I don't necessarily agree with. But the difference between Congress and a co op or a labor union right now is the fact that co ops and labor unions provide a good or service. From what I've seen out of the last 6 months of Congress, they do not do such a thing. In fact, they sit around and squabble and spend some time campaigning.
It's a service. I mean, some kind of service, I imagine.
The American people get a useful product out of a union or a co-op. And I work with the local co-ops.
I mean, we all know that everything that AOC says is just the pinnacle of accuracy and wisdom. So, I don't know why you're even trying to argue this.
You pronounced pandering wrong.
I mean, what can we say? She's not the sharpest box of rocks in the box.
Did you hear that she's going to try and primary Chuck Schumer next time around?
No.
Yes. Yes, no, she is absolutely going to try and primary Chuck Schumer. She wants to be in the Senate now so she can have even more power.
Well, good luck. Good luck to her.
And he is coming up this time around, I believe. So, and let's not forget that she's got a list of people that are waiting to primary the centrist Democrats who won't fall into line with the progressive agenda.
We'll see what happens.
Well, speaking of the House of Representatives and their lead representative, the only person with more power than the Speaker of the House, of course, we have to talk about something that only the House of Representatives can do in this country, and that is impeachment. This past week, Donald Trump was on Good Morning America, and he was asked point blank if he would take foreign intel on an opposition candidate if it was offered to him, or if he would turn around and go to the FBI. And his answer drew quite a response from the American left, of course calling for his impeachment because he is assumed dirty right now, and I do agree he should not have said yes immediately following the Mueller report, but that's between him and his press secretary. But the question comes up, of course, is this an impeachable offense? And why would we be going directly to the FBI if somebody came up to somebody and said they had dirt on somebody? And why would not we be looking at the content of the dirt?
Dirt is dirt. Well, I mean, I think this is another case of Lucy with the football. Like, Trump says something outrageous, and every single time they come in like Charlie Brown trying to kick it, and he's like, I mean, at some point you have to realize that he just blabs his mouth. Like, And then you look ridiculous when you say impeachment, impeachment at every single thing. It's like it's the exact same thing, just going cycling, cycling, cycling.
One of the interesting ideas that the president brought up while he was being interviewed to this is that nobody should be calling the FBI on something like this. And he took that straight from his boardroom experience, in which essentially if somebody came into his boardroom with a little bit of dirt on one of his opponents for real estate in New York, and it was either not credible or it was something that would have been obtained illegally, he wouldn't have necessarily called the FBI. He would have just told the guy to get the hell out of his office. And I think that's actually probably the more appropriate response to something like this. What do you think about that?
Well, sure. I mean, and that's part of the MO too, is to say, for the left to say, oh, why do you have such a problem with some virtue signaling thing, when to the uninformed listener, they're like, oh yeah, good point. But 9 times out of 10, it's not even the right thing anyway. Like, the whole Kavanaugh thing last summer with, oh, well, why won't you allow an FBI investigation? And everybody's like, hey, yeah, an FBI investigation, that doesn't seem so bad. And everybody who actually knew something about something is like, that's not the point. The FBI investigation was not the point. It's the same thing. It's like they're just pointing at, oh, you just don't want, whatever we decide is the outcome. And then uninformed people are like, that makes sense. Trump is probably being terrible. It's just a diversion tactic, I think.
I mean, Twitter exploded with this when this all came out. I mean, there were trending hashtags to impeach Trump now. I look down the trending side and I see impeach Trump now, and I don't even think about it anymore because it's going to be something stupid at this point.
Yeah, like his comb over flew, and his bald head flashed people. Impeach Trump.
And he's the one person out there, I think, at this point that could cure cancer and still be in trouble for that because he was putting medical professionals out of business.
No, because Joe Biden is going to cure cancer when he gets in office.
Oh man, we're flying through topics. We could probably cover that at this point too. I didn't put that on there for time, but I mean, we are flying through this. That was just stupidity beyond a reason, because the only thing that I could think of out of that is to be the fact that it's like the Family Guy episode where they actually have the cure for cancer sitting there in a vault and they're hiding it from the world because the treatment brings in more money than the cure.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I mean, like, if nobody keeps their campaign promises anyway, why not promise to cure cancer? Why not promise to solve world hunger? Why not promise to end all wars? Why not promise to, denuclearize the entire world? If you're not going to keep any of them anyway, just promise whatever you want.
One of the interesting ideas that going back to Trump on this, out of the Trump thing, was the fact that everyone wanted to impeach the president for the fact that he came out and said that he wouldn't necessarily go to the FBI if such information was brought to him. If he would listen to it and then he wouldn't go to the FBI. Nobody talked about the content of the information. And some of this goes back to the email scandal as well, because a lot of people wanted to talk about the 33,000 deleted emails that Hillary put out there, and the fact that she just got rid of emails and it's just emails.
Wait. But before you keep going, isn't this entire thing a hypothetical?
It is a hypothetical, but the idea...
Then how does the content even have anything to do with it anyway, if it's a hypothetical to begin with?
Well, it's a hypothetical, yes, but I mean, I guess if it was me and the same thing was brought to my table, if I was running for a public office, I would listen to the content first. And then I would...
Yeah, but there is no content. It's hypothetical. The answer is, that's a stupid question. Don't ask me that. It's hypothetical.
Okay, I like that answer better, actually. But that's one of the things on all these, is nobody talks about what the information is. Like, say it actually did happen. Say that I don't know, an Italian guy came into the office and says, "Oh, I have information on Joe Biden. Do you want to hear it?" They don't care about what the information is. They just want to hang the president for the fact that somebody would walk up to him and offer it to him. And it's not necessarily his action, it's the fact that somebody would walk up to him they want to hang him for.
Yeah. And wasn't that the whole kind of thing with Don Jr. and the meeting with the Russians? Supposedly the whole collusion thing where it was like, first of all, nothing was even said, and then second of all, what was said was nothing.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with anything. So, like, who cares?
Well, foreign governments know things. How they get their information is between them and the CIA. That's the other problem that I had with this, is the fact that you're supposed to go to the FBI with this. Well, no, if it's a foreign actor, you go to the CIA because that's their jurisdiction. That is not FBI jurisdiction. You go to the FBI if you want to incriminate yourself for an investigation because you are in their jurisdiction. The foreign actors are not.
Yeah.
So now I've got people in the government that have no idea how the government works to begin with.
Yeah. I feel like it's like when kids are like gossiping about each other, and then they say something like, "Oh, do you think so and so is pretty?" Well, not really. "Oh, they just said you're ugly." And then, it's the same thing. It's like creating a fake scenario to gotcha, and it's like it doesn't mean anything. They just want an excuse to scream impeachment so that they can whip the public into a frenzy.
Well, one of the ideas that came out of this and was being passed around and was immediately shut down as well when they were talking about this was the fact that Pelosi and others were starting to talk almost instantly about passing laws through Congress that would make it illegal for you to actually take any sort of foreign intel on anybody, which there are no laws on the books against that right now. But now they want to pass the laws, so with one statement from Trump, he convinced Nancy Pelosi to tighten up our election system. He trolled her into tightening up the elections.
I mean, that's what he does, isn't it? It's troll people into taking DNA tests, troll people into advocating for border security, troll people into tightening up the elections, troll people into all kinds. I mean, basically, just troll them into everything you want to do, and then watch their hair burn as they scream and cry.
Watch their hair burn. I love that. That should be somebody's campaign slogan this time coming through. I've got one more topic here. Again, this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but it does speak to what's going to be coming, I think, in our government in the coming elections here. This past week, there was an incident in foreign waters over by the Middle East in which I believe it was a Chinese ship was hit with a mine, but other people are trying to say that it was hit with a missile. All that we saw, of course, was a picture of a ship burning out in the Middle Eastern Sea with very little explanation to it. Most people jumped to the idea that it was Iran right away, and a lot of people started to look at this with disbelief, and the first question that they came up with was, who wants us in a war with Iran right now, with the conspiracies coming out of there? And I wanted to talk a little bit about this, not on the foreign policy side, but on the conspiracy side, and what this could mean for an upcoming election in the U.S. So what have you seen on this so far?
Not much. I saw the clip, and like you said, it was really ambiguous. It was not great quality. You can really tell what was happening. It was pretty short. And then just a bunch of people jumping to conclusions about what it means. And that's about all I know about it.
A lot of people are calling this another Gulf of Tonkin moment, which I'm not 100% sure on that one either. That was right before I got into politics in general. But from what I'm seeing out of this, yes, it's an idea of a lot of people wondering what what it would take for us to get into an armed conflict with somebody, especially given the track record of this administration for keeping us out of armed conflict overseas right now, something that a lot of people are thankful for. Also, especially given the fact that so many people are in support of Tulsi Gabbard, given her anti war sentiment as well. So, who could possibly want us in a conflict with Iran?
Yeah, I mean, I think people on the left have been saying, we don't need to take any kind of military action, and I don't necessarily think that. I don't think, at least the very little I know about this, I haven't heard anyone necessarily, including the administration, being like, oh, now we need to, go to a bunch of intervention. So maybe this is drummed up and over exaggerated. I don't really know, to be honest.
Well, interestingly enough, this isn't the last thing that we heard about Iran this week either. I've been just kind of listening along today and looking onto things, and the other story with Iran, and it's Iran, both instances, which really blows my mind onto this, is the fact that Iran is producing uranium to a weapons grade level at this point. I didn't put this in the show notes, so I apologize for ambushing you with this, but at this point now they're going over 20% over their fuel level and the level that was agreed upon in the Iran nuclear deal that we pulled out of.
Yeah, I have no idea about any of that.
I heard it on Rush this morning, and that's actually kind of the first I heard about it as well.
Hmm.
But there again, I mean, are they actually refining to a point that it's weapons grade? Or is that another false news story to try and pull us into a conflict with Iran
Yeah.
as we're going into an election?
Yeah. I mean, the crazy things that happen on a daily basis, you never know what's going to be revealed. Or what's going to happen as a result of something not revealed.
Well, and the thing that bothers me too the most about this, when I was a senior in high school, that was when September 11th, 2001 happened, my senior year of high school, my history teacher, oh, it wasn't history at the time. He had taught history before, but senior year we all took social problems, so it wasn't necessarily a history. The teacher, though, reminded us the fact that we would not be necessarily in a position to take an action against Afghanistan, which, again, in 2001, 2002, was all that we were focused on at the time. Iraq was so far down the road yet at that point that we weren't even thinking about it, but we would not have been in a position to take an action if a Democrat had been in office at the time. So the generalized idea about the Republican Party, especially back at that time, was the fact that they were the war happy ones and the Democrats were going to be the ones that wanted to keep us out of conflict. Now, that seems to have shifted, and it seems like both parties are into this, but we also have a Republican administration right now that is doing its best to keep us out of any sort of armed conflict. And that doesn't fit the narrative that anybody's talking about. So, again, I go back to the conspiracy of who's trying to get us into an armed conflict right now.
Maybe the establishment Republicans.
And that wouldn't surprise me either. I know somebody who's very, very neoconservative, and this was before the election, so we were talking about this, and we were talking about welfare benefits of all things, and this neoconservative looked over at me and said, "Well, we need a war." And then, what do you mean we need a war? We're in a war right now because it was Obama, and we were still over in the Middle East at the time. We hadn't completely pulled out at the point yet. And he says, "Well, no. We don't need a war like that where people can go and volunteer and be in the military. We need a big war with a draft, so we can tell some of the people that are on government benefits that, okay, the government's taking care of you. No, you owe a debt to a government. Grab your gun. You're drafted." And that,
Sure, I guess you could look at it that way.
well, and that's the neoconservative mindset. That's what they want to do. So I feel like, yes, they would be trying to push us into a war, and the establishment you brought up, could that be a part of this?
Probably all kinds of like mustache twirling going on behind closed doors. Not only, from the neocons to the all of the foreign actors who would like to see us in conflict, and whoever it was that was in that little boat, all kinds of probably multiple conspiracies happening simultaneously and concurrently, and they're all gonna like converge into one gigantic World War III, perhaps.
Well, and I'm not necessarily concerned about Israel either. Or not Israel. I'm not necessarily concerned about Iran either because of Israel. Now, yes, Iran is at a point right now where they have centrifuges where they could spin up enough uranium that they could make a nuclear weapon out of it. But they have almost no missile capability. They have no ballistics capability to get that nuclear bomb anywhere. It would have to be dropped out of a plane like we did in Japan in the 40s. And they would also have to take a lot of time to test it. What do you think is going to happen with Israel being the way that it is if they detect the seismic activity that suggests that Iran is testing a nuclear weapon? What do you think Netanyahu is going to do about that? He's not going to sit on his hands.
I don't know. Don't ask me about all this kind of stuff. I mean, like, I'm the last person to ask what would happen. Yeah.
Israel's been staring at Persia since Abraham was walking around. You think they're going to stop now?
Hmm?
So yeah, I'm not necessarily worried about Iran coming up with a nuclear weapon. I think our allies over there would put a stop to that in a hurry, long before they could ever get anything off the ground.
Well, unless you're on the wrong side of whoever wants a conflict.
That's true. Well, that's all that I have for today here. You have anything else that you want to add on any of this?
No, that's a pretty good rundown of informative to me because I've been out of the loop.
I know you're getting up and getting ready to travel all over the country. I kind of envy you for that. I'm not going to get an opportunity like that, but I know we talked about that off mic after we recorded the other night. But yeah, you've got quite the trip planned for yourself.
It's gonna be a busy summer.
Well, we talked about so many negative things over the course of the last hour and 12 minutes, but we always want to end Edgeworld on a positive note. So, describe to the audience, if you will, please, a hobby that you have that has nothing to do with work or politics. It could be a new show you're watching on Netflix, an album that you just found, a video game that you're playing, something that you do to unwind, and something that makes you happy.
Yeah, well, I'm sad because I had a lot of plants. I mean, I have a patio, and I had a lot of plants out on my patio and herbs and flowers and all that kind of stuff. And I even like jerry rigged this cool like sprinkler system from my faucet. I split it out and went out the kitchen window around the railing of my balcony so it would like mist my plants at intervals when I was gone. And yeah, I'm just gonna be gone so much that they're all gonna die. So I had to give all my plants away. So that was sad. Gardening is cathartic, even if it's a patio garden.
Oh, I understand that entirely. I've got a little patio garden myself,
Yeah,
but my patio garden keeps the bug population down.
yeah, yeah. Gotta love those green plants.
You're way closer to California carnivores than I am. You should jump up there at some point while you're on your travels and check them out.
Check out what now?
California carnivores. It's
What's
up on
that?
the other. It's
Is that a plant place?
yeah. I raise carnivorous plants.
Oh, nice.
Venus flytraps, sundews.
Yeah. Cool.
No, I understand gardening especially. That's pretty awesome there.
Yeah, except I had to give away all my plants. Except I do still have rosemary and mint, but I imagine they'll be dead by the time I get back.
You can make mojitos with the mint when you get back.
Yeah, the dead twigs.
Well, I do want to take a second and thank the audience for tuning into this show. Remember, of course, to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you want to finish the conversation with me, make sure you go over and check me out. That is at Edsblog Twitter with a 1 in place of the I over on Twitter. Or you can email me at edsblogtwitter@gmail.com. If you want to finish the conversation with Emily here, Emily, tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Adventist Millennial. Well, that's my Gmail is adventistmillennial@gmail.com, or on Facebook and Twitter at SDA Millennial. Yeah, shoot me a message. Let me know what you want to talk about. Take a listen to my podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you find your podcasts. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
And that, of course, will all be linked in the description below. One last time, I want to remind you, if you did like this show, and as you're going down to find all the information to go follow Emily, hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you're not already, and hit that like button as well if you like this show. Once again, if you are listening back to this later on the audio platforms, make sure you subscribe over there. We put out new content every Tuesday, and the audio platforms have some bonus content that you will not hear anywhere else, including my talk with the Adventist Millennial when it comes out. It'll come out on my audio platforms as well. And again, if you are on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That really helps us move up the charts and helps us get discovered. And once again, make sure you go over there and check out Freedom Scoop's website. And if you know anybody that is interested in writing, we are currently taking applications for writers for the website. We are at our fill with podcasts right now, but we always will take anybody who wants to put a column up for us. Email me or email Jake, who provided our podcast artwork here. You can find him on Twitter. That is at RealJake1776. As we always say on Ed's World, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel, because we saw the New York Times article and they definitely got a bent for themselves. But
that was all real and true.
Do find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Emily, you have last word.
Yeah, everybody stay informed. Draw your own conclusions, but draw good conclusions. And we'll see you out there.
Take care.